So you went to school in Niles Elementary?
Niles Elementary, right. Went through till class of 42, graduated out of Niles. And one of the things that Niles had was a lot of pet parades. Each year we'd have a great pet parade, and we'd all bring our pets to school, and my pet was a cow.
You brought a cow to school?
I'd ride the cow to school.
You'd ride the cow
I
to school.
rode more cows than I rode horses.
I didn't
And
know.
this is a fact, you know. And
So they didn't let the cow in the classroom, did they?
no, I'd stake it out near the school. There was no houses around to speak of, and you had lots of grass around, and just stake it out and then water it at noon and ride it home at night. And then I had other cows staked out, and I could herd the cow with this cow. It was a Jersey, and it loved to be ridden, and it was just a true pet.
Wow.
You know, and
So did you give it a name?
pretty,
Pretty.
yeah. And so it beautiful little cow. And
So would the parade be during school hours or after school?
no, it would be a school social group. We'd have this parade once a year, and then people would get awards or, you know, a little ribbon for your best pet and what have you. And
Did the parents come and see the parade too?
I don't recall that.
Okay.
I don't recall that. But I can recall that Mrs. Nelson was one of the judges. And at the Township Register, they would have these little ribbons that, you know, award ribbons and what have you. Mrs. Nelson gave so many out, they had to print up more for the program while the parade was going on.
That's fun.
Yeah.
So the Township Register was one of the newspapers?
Yes,
in the
right.
area.
Paul Donovan was one of the writers there at the Township Register.
Where was the office? Was that in Niles?
Yeah, right there off of, almost across from the American Garage, or next to PC Hansen Lumber on that side of the street, Rose's Garage, there.
Wow. And so what other memories do you have of school? Did you play games?
Oh yeah, we played marbles, and that was a deal. Marbles, tops, ante over, throwing a ball over the top of the house, and then somebody, when you caught the ball on the other side, then you chased the other kids and threw the ball at them. You know, it was usually a tennis ball. You know, we were played games with shooting each other with a slingshot with apricots, green apricots. They shot pretty good out of a slingshot. Yeah. And speaking of slingshot, we had one kid in the school, Melvin August, that always had a slingshot in his pocket. And Melvin was from a pretty poor family. I mean, they didn't have much. And about 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at the old school, everybody had their lunches in the basement of the school. And Melvin would, and that was where the restrooms were downstairs there. And Melvin would ask the teacher to go, you know, to the restroom, and Melvin would have lunch in the basement.
Other people's...
Other people's lunches.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, he was pretty fast.
Yeah.
And he was a good shot with the slingshot too.
So did you go through 8th grade or at Niles Elementary?
8th grade, yeah.
8th grade, and then you went to
Washington High School.
Washington Union High School.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I would have been class of 46, would have been. I'm a high school dropout.
You quit to join the Merchant Marine, right?
Well, I really was trying to get in the Navy. There were 8 of us, took our physicals when we were all just 17.
So you were just finished junior year.
Where, you know, and so anyway, I left in my junior year,
Okay.
I never finished it. Anyway, 8 of us took our physicals, and 7 went, and my dad would not sign. I already had 3 brothers in the Navy. he said 17, 11 months. So anyway, I didn't argue with my father.
No, so you went Merchant Marine. Was that safer? Was that considered safer than the Navy? Going to the Merchant Marine?
Well, no. What had happened was that my brothers told me about the Merchant Marine. They said, if you can't get in the Navy, join the Merchant Marine. And I had this in my head. Now, at the time, during wartime, the kids turned into adults. We had to do the things that the adults did because they were gone. Basically, the men were gone, either working in, defense jobs, or they were in the military, one of the two. So basically, us kids who were 16 years old took over and did what the men did. So I worked for the railroad.
At 16?
At 16, right. And I first was working in the section at Niles, and they would pay us every day. Hy Martinson was the section foreman that we worked for, and he would write out a slip of your time, how much time you worked, and then this is on weekends, cutting fire guards or putting in ties or whatever they want you to do. And then we would go to the depot, and the agent would give us the change.
The money.
Yeah, it wasn't much, but it was 53 cents an hour, and that was big money, especially for a high school kid.
So you went to high school until, what time would you get out? About 3 or 4 in the afternoon?
About, I would say, a little after 3, maybe 3:30, something like that.
And then you go work at the railroad?
I worked from 4 to midnight.
4 to midnight
Yeah.
at 16 years old?
Yeah.
Wow. And then weekends as well?
Well, this was later. All right,
Later.
what happened was that the first part of my railroad career was in the weekends,
Okay.
in the section. Then I went into the signal department and worked as a signal helper for the Southern Pacific. And it was Gang 3 out of Niles, and we work all around the area here. And then when high school time came, this was summertime, then I went back to high school, and at that time a supervisor from the Western Pacific, Harry Dunn, was the signal engineer, and Harry Flynn was the signal supervisor, came to my house. They knew that I knew how to operate Niles Tower in throwing the levers and running trains. Because as kids, we lived right there, and we were up in the tower quite often, and some of the operators would get so drunk they couldn't get out of their chair to hang the orders downstairs, and they'd pay us 50 cents to stay there and throw the levers and line the trains. And
But
that's
that was
how
an important job. It had to be
it
done
was.
right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So anyway, then they gave me the opportunity of being the first leverman at Niles Tower, and I could pick any trick I wanted. In other words, like 4 to midnight or midnight to late or whatever. And I was going to school, so 4 to midnight was good for me. And the other part of it was that we had, or I would have to train new levermen, but they would come to me on my shift and learn how to run the plant. And we had 20 Armstrong levers. They're big, long levers that you throw the switches and the signals and the derails and what have you. And some of them were extremely hard, others just not so hard to throw. and all by what you call pipeline and carriers. The pipelines were 1-inch pipes that went clear maybe 200 or 300 yards from the tower. And they had a lot of what they call compensators that would balance the pole and what have you. And this was all maintained by a signal maintainer. And if it's operating properly, no problem, you could handle it. But it was, we had many, many trains, just lots of trains.
Niles Canyon was an important
Well-
track into the Bay Area, right?
Well, not just Niles Canyon.
Okay.
No, the whole Bay Area, because we had trains coming in from the vegetable trains, which would come out of the Salinas Valley. You have maybe 1 or 2 or 3 sections of trains of just vegetables and refrigerated trains. Then you had trains out of San Francisco. You had trains coming in. For every train that went out, they had another one that would come in with an opposing number. All the even numbers went east, and all the odd numbers came west.
So
And,
were there 2 sets of tracks? They were not. Did
no,
they have
just basically one track.
one track.
One
so it had to
track,
be
yeah.
Closely.
Yeah, so the one train, see, that they were controlled by train orders and the dispatcher. Every tower or agency or what have you had a train order, and these train orders would be given to the engineer and the conductor, and they knew exactly what they were to do. If they were to take a siding somewhere or meet in another train at a certain point, that's where their orders came. And
So from Salinas, how would they come through Niles to get to Oakland?
well, basically, the ones from Salinas came to Niles and went up the canyon and went back east.
Okay.
They were
East.
basically the fruit and vegetable trains.
Were they refrigerated or
Oh yes, yeah, yeah. Most of them were iced
iced?
at that time, and then later refrigeration came more. So that was we had rock trains coming out of Radom up at Pleasanton there. Sometimes 4 trains. You had an advanced Oakland rock and a regular Oakland rock. You might have an advanced San Francisco rock and a regular rock train. And
So does rock mean that there was rock inside of it? Or
sand and gravel.
Sand and gravel.
They call them rock trains.
Rocks, okay. Passenger trains,
Passenger trains were basically military.
military during the war.
Yeah. We didn't have any. Western Pacific was different. They had passengers, but SP had eliminated them early.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything was geared toward the military, toward the war effort.
Oh, right. Yeah. That is altogether different than today. Today, there's so much talk going on. In wartime, you did not discuss any military stuff, period. Nothing. You didn't let anybody know what your ships were carrying. You didn't know what was being moved anywheres. And a loose lip sunk a ship.
That was the same.
Yeah. And and everybody seemed to work together. It was something in World War II, everybody worked together.
Yeah, the men left and the women went to work, probably for the first
Yeah,
time
right.
outside the home.
Yeah.
In big numbers.
Yeah. No, it was big.
So let's talk about you joined the Merchant Marine.
Yes. When I had my papers, I had passed my physical, I went with my mom to San Francisco to Geary Street to the Naval Induction Center. And I handed in my papers. I'm the happiest lark as a kid. I'm going to go to the Navy, right? Well, They said, sorry, quota's full, you got to go in the Army. I said, I'm not going in the Army. You're going in the Army. No, I'm not going in the Army. And we left, and my mom was with me. We went up 1 block to 1000 Geary Street by Van Ness Avenue. Signed up for the Merchant Marine. 3 days later, I'm on a troop train out of Oakland.
Oh my goodness, that was fast.
Yeah, they were. They didn't wait.
And you were 17.
Yeah.
And did they know you were 17, or did they think you were?
You could be in the military at 17.
Oh, you could?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
As long as your parents signed.
Yeah. Yeah. They have to sign until 21.
Oh, 21 used to be the legal
Yeah.
age. Now it's down to 18.
Right.
Okay.
So anyway, I'm on a troop train to Catalina Island, trained at Catalina Island, got my ship out of San Pedro, went to Port Hueneme, loaded with the basically CB material, and we
What
had.
is CB is the...
That's the Navy portion of carpenters, builders,
Okay.
and you know, they did everything. Okay. So anyway, we had 100 tons of dynamite in our #1 hole. 100 tons, remember it.
That's
So anyway, we went to Eniwetok, and we stayed there until we convoyed to Saipan.
So Eniwetok is, where's that? Is that
The
an island?
Bikini Lagoon, where they did the atomic bombs after the war, you know, where they did the testing.
Okay.
And that was a big harbor. There were hundreds of ships in there when I was there. And then when we left there, we had 12 ships in our convoy, one big C-5, and it was a military ship with, I don't know whether, let's put it this way, all military men on it, maybe 2,000 or 3,000 men. And we had, as I say, 12 ships. We had 3 destroyers, big destroyers, the DDs. Destroyer escort was a small destroyer. And then they sounded a sub. They called in another destroyer, and the destroyer went on our stern. We had then destroyers all around us, 4.
To protect the men?
Our convoy, yeah.
Convoy, okay.
Yeah. So then we got to Saipan, and we went into the docks, and they unloaded us, then went back. When we left Saipan, we were in a storm going to Saipan, a heck of a storm. And when we left Saipan, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the next 4 o'clock, the next day, we could still see Saipan. It was that rough.
You couldn't go anywhere. So what year was that? Was that?
That would be 1946, 1940.
That was after the war was over then?
No,
No?
no, war was over in 46.
The war was over. So this was just before the end of the war?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. So anyway, I came back, got off that ship, got on a brand new Victory ship. We loaded 10,000 tons of bombs out of Benicia. Went back to Saipan, dumped the bombs. 72 hours, they had 10,000 tons of bombs off our ship.
Wow.
We come back, we got another 10,000 tons of bombs at Point Richmond. Went back to Saipan, dumped the bombs.
Now, why were they taking so many bombs to Saipan?
The B-29s.
They were going to bomb Japan?
Well, they've been bombing Japan.
They had been bombing Japan.
Yeah,
Okay.
say the B-29s would come out of Guam, come out of Saipan, Tinian, were the 2 major air, or 3 major air spots. And they would go over, what they would do, they would be almost 1 a minute when these B-29s would take off from Saipan and Tinian. The 2 islands were right near each other.
Okay.
And they would go to get about 30 planes together, and then the fighters would come in, the P-51s would go with them all the way to Japan. They would drop their bombs and then they come back. When you saw those planes come back, that was the thing to see.
They were all shot up?
All shot up, yeah.
Lost a lot of men.
Lots of them, yeah.
I don't think people understand that maybe, we think of the two big bombs, atom bombs dropping, but there was a lot going on before that then.
Yeah, well, right. When the last time we went by Tinian and Saipan are right side by side. The Indianapolis came right across our bow, and they announced the Indianapolis. I don't know whether the Indianapolis was going in to Tinian to leave the atomic bombs, or whether it was leaving. If it was leaving, 3 days later, it went to the bottom. It got torpedoed.
Wow.
And that was the last big cruiser lost.
In the whole war.
Yeah.
So, as soon as you were out of the Merchant Marine, you came back to Niles.
Yeah, but I made another run.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I made another run to Guam with 3,000 tons of dynamite.
What was they using the dynamite for? Was that the...
They used that for blowing up coral, building airstrips, what have you. Construction, yeah. Anyway, and we had a lot of different cargo on our ship other than the dynamite. We had 10,000 tons of stuff. But we ended up, they didn't want us in the harbor at Guam. But they took us in, and we had the military come aboard our ship. They opened up the #1 hole on the ship, and here's the military all around that hole of the ship with Thompson submachine guns.
Why?
Yeah, and they took out 500 cases of whiskey that was donated from the General Motors Corporation to the enlisted men, and they took it up to the officers' club at Guam. So anyway, then they didn't want us in the harbor with all this dynamite, so they made us anchor off of Agana, which is the capital of Guam, and we sat there for 3 months.
3 months?
3 months out there. Yeah, you talk about
On board ship for 3 months?
Yeah, oh yeah, well, more than that. But anyway, we were chewing your fingernails waiting for that dynamite because the glycerin is always settling. And the dynamite has to be turned. And yeah, but it's down the holes, you can't get to it. You can't turn it. So anyway, finally they called us in and got it unloaded, and then we went to Panama and then up the East Coast through the Caribbean in one hellacious storm. We lost all our officers' chairs. We lost all our dishes.
Wow.
We eating on pie tins when we got to Baltimore, and then it snowed 10 inches.
What an
that night.
Trip. Oh. So did you come back on this ship, or did you come back overland?
I flew back, and
You flew back.
Yeah, and
Guess you were glad
in
to
a
get off that
DC-3, yeah.
Pardon me?
In a DC-3.
DC-3?
Yeah,
Is
2
that
engine.
military?
No,
No?
2 engine. It was a
Commercial?
United Airlines.
Wow.
And then I got another ship, went up to Alaska, and spent a few months up in the Bering Sea, 2 runs into the Bering Sea. And
Were you still in the Merchant Marine
Yeah,
doing that?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
then, see, I had to stay 30 months, according to law.
Okay.
And then when I came back, then the next thing was that I wanted to build a house.